was the final stage of the preparation for the SCO meeting in August and September to take place later this year. So today we've had a very friendly atmosphere of our work. We would like to thank President Xi, with whom we have a meeting earlier today. We've exchanged our visions for the goals of our further development of our organization, of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the results of the presidency of China. We have reaffirmed the importance of the SCO in international affairs and the global economy. Of course, there are certain differences that still remain, but the trend is toward consolidation of the SCO and strengthening its role within the international arena. We're happy to see that our idea to make the SCO one of the foundations of a multipolar, stable, peaceful world order, this is what we still continue to believe, and we're seeing it in what has been said by the member states of the SCO and those that are willing to join up the work of this organization. There's a lot of countries across the globe that were willing to do that. We have also noted that we are creating an architecture of equal and indivisible security in Eurasia, and its foundation is the Greater Eurasian Partnership based on cooperation and partnership of different integration organizations such as the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union, the Commonwealth of Independent States, ASEAN, and of course we consider the Belt and Road Initiative by China as one of the critical components of that. And we have certain agreements between the Belt and Road Initiative and the Eurasian Economic Union in particular. Now, in the context of the approach that we've expressed, we have expressed our readiness to continue to work together within the scope of the United Nations. We have reaffirmed a number of agreements reached at the previous summit aimed at improving the functions and the operations of the SCO. We have agreed on creating a center to oppose threats in Tashkent and an anti-drug center in Dushanbe. We have spoken for further deepening of SCO's partnership with outside partners. A new step here is the upcoming first-time high-level SCO Plus meeting to take place in Tianjin. It will take place right after the September 1st meeting of the heads of states of the SCO. So we're hoping to see 30 countries represented there, different organizations as well, and this goes to show how attractive the SCO platform has become for a partnership of the countries of the global south, of the global east, and the global majority. We have discussed a number of international affairs today. We've informed our partners on our assessment on the recent developments in Ukraine. We have reaffirmed and aligned our approaches to negotiating and settling this crisis, which has been emphasized a lot by President Putin. And our colleagues have once again reaffirmed that they understand our position to eliminate the core roots of the problem and to accept the existing reality on the ground, to protect the guarantee the protection of the rights of Russian-speaking people in the territory of Ukraine, including the territory that is still under the control of Kiev. We have condemned Israel's attacks on Iranian nuclear sites. The SCO, right after the attacks, made a statement condemning that. and the same goes for US strikes against Iranian nuclear sites. This is in a direct violation of the UN Charter and the Agreement on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. We have agreed that our countries support each other in supporting Tehran in having the right to use peaceful nuclear energy. We believe that without a just settlement to the Israel and Palestine conflict, no way towards peace in the region is possible. This must be done under the aegis of the United Nations, and we all have spoken for ending all actions that contribute to worsening the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. We've discussed the situation in Gaza or in Afghanistan, and almost all members of the SCO are stepping up their talks with Afghanistan and its new government. We are trying to make sure that this country develops as a neutral, peaceful state, independent state, free of terrorism and drugs. We've also underlined that it is necessary to stimulate the nation building and peaceful process in the country. We have agreed on a number of documents to be agreed upon inside during the SCO leaders meeting. Now, in terms of regional and global agenda positions of the countries of the SCO, it will all be agreed upon within the finalizing documents to be signed at the meeting. Now, there will also be a strategy for the development of the SCO until the year 2030 that will be, and right now in 2025, the previous SCO strategy agreed upon in 2015 is expiring. It was signed in Ufa. So we believe that one of the main political documents is the statement to commemorate the 80-year anniversary since the end of the World War II and the forming of the UN. There's also a number of agreements to be signed on green industry, AI, investment cooperation, and the digital economy. The decisions of the SCO leaders on these matters, on these documents, will lay the foundation for the preparation, lay the groundwork for the preparations for an SCO meeting of the heads of governments that will take place in November and mid-November in Russia. So we've had a lot of good progress today, and we've discussed a lot with our friends. Now I'm ready to answer your questions. Minister Lavrov, good afternoon. I would like you to comment yesterday's statement by Trump on Ukraine. After what we heard from Washington yesterday, are we ready to continue dialogue with Washington on normalizing bilateral relations and settling the Ukrainian conflict? And one more question, if I may, in addition to that. What's our assessment of the threat of those 100% secondary sanctions against Russia when it comes to Russian economic interests? How would you assess that? Well, I think that's the same question. We've never built our foreign policy in such a way that it would hamper our national and economic interests, and the special military operation is aimed at destroying at the core the threats that have existed not for a year, not for a day, but for decades. These threats have existed because of NATO expanding towards our borders, and Russia has warned about this numerous times. Our president has said that so many times, speaking about that matter, speaking about that problem. Unfortunately, it has fallen on deaf ears, and it only reaffirms something that he's said just recently in an interview to Pavel Zarubin, where President Putin said he spoke about the evolution of our perception of our relations with the West, when at first it seems that if we remove the ideological differences, everything would be fine, but later it turns out it wasn't about ideology from the very start. In the West, no matter what ideology they see in Russia, in the Russian Empire, or in the Soviet Union, or the post-Soviet Russia, the West was always driven by only one thing: the geopolitical attempt to undermine Russia, contain Russia, or even destroy Russia, like they've said they want to do numerous times. So, as Dmitry Peskov said, we would like to see what is behind that statement by President Trump. So now it's 50 days. It used to be 24 hours. We've heard about 100 days also. So we've been through that already. We want to see what the US actually wants. We understand that there's an enormous kind of pressure that comes towards the US from the European Union, from the NATO leadership, that are openly supporting Zelensky's demand to pump Ukraine up with weapons, including offensive weapons, at the expense of more and more harm coming to the taxpayers of the West. Now, there's a saying we have: don't dig a hole to someone else, or you'll fall into it. So the sanctions that are being prepared once again in Brussels by the European Union, and this sanctions funnel that already exists, they're trying to put the United States into it as well. But as President Trump said, it's Europe that's going to pay for all of that. And we've already seen so much damage that has come to the European economy. And sober-minded European politicians and economists and specialists, they can see that how much harm has come to Europe because of this sanctions war. There are so many sanctions that are already in place against Russia, but we will get over it. We will fight through it. We will, and this is something that a lot of foreign economists and specialists already believe as well. Well, as to the United States and their threats, our trading partners, they hear that, they prepare accordingly, but they have their own obligations internationally and with Russia. And so, knowing our trading partners, I don't see a way how they would give up on their independent policy, trade policy, when it comes to honoring their agreements, bilateral and multilateral as well. Channel 1. Minister Lavrov, can you tell us the details of your bilateral meeting with President Xi? What kind of message did you convey to him from President Putin? And one more question about the SCO. What countries are currently expressing interest in joining the organization? What initiatives of the SCO could prove beneficial to reducing the growth of economic and political crisis in the world? So, your second question once again: which countries would like to join the SCO, and what initiatives could be helpful today, considering the risks of the growing threat of geopolitical crises? Well, now, speaking of my meeting with chairman of the SCO and President Xi, and then the talks with between the Russian delegations and China. We spoke about the development of the SCO. We spoke about the initiatives of Chinese chairmanship of the organization, and at the bilateral meeting with President Xi, we spoke about our coordination in foreign policy agenda, and when it comes to, of course, our geopolitical goals and positions, are something that has been already discussed between President Putin and President Xi. I'm not going to go into details about that. As to the countries that are willing to join the SCO, today there's been a decision taken that saying that the status of the partner of the SCO should be given to Laos. And as I said, most of those countries willing to join will be participating in a new format, something that will take place right after the September 1st SCO summit. It will be called, this new format will be called SCO Plus, and it will involve over 30 countries and international organizations. Now, as to some challenges or risks to geopolitics, I'm not going to go back to saying the same things that I keep saying all the time as to how we build our foreign policy to defend against those who are trying to harm our national interests. Minister Lavrov, I'd like to ask you about the regional security system. It was one of the goals of the creation of the SCO. So during today's talks, did we come close to preparing for anti-terrorist and other defensive operations? As if you have been listening to me before, I've already spoken about the anti-terrorist SCO center, and in recent times we've deemed it's necessary to scale up the mandate of this organization when it comes to combating organized crime, such as specifically drug trafficking. So in Tashkent, based on the existing anti-drug trafficking center, we've decided to create a new SCO-headed center to fight drug trafficking. So there's anti-terrorist center as well. And so these two centers will be working together, and at Bishkek there will be an organization aimed at fighting organized crime. So there will be 3 organizations. Following the reform, we will have new opportunities to effectively combat the threat of terrorism, of illegal immigration, something that often leads to extremist and terrorist activities. So I believe that our presidents will approve that reform. Good afternoon, Minister Lavrov. Earlier today, at the SCO Foreign Minister meeting, you had a meeting with the Foreign Minister of Iran, Mr. Arakchi. Did you discuss the proposal by Russia to remove excess enriched uranium from Iran, and did you agree on anything? We discussed different ways towards a peaceful solution to the situation in such a way that it would respect the agreements reached with Iran. Now, Iran has officially agreed to give up developing nuclear weapons years ago, and there were no proof provided by the IAEA or any other international officials that Iran did develop a nuclear weapons program. And so the rights of Iran as all non-nuclear members of the IAEA must be respected when it comes to enriching uranium for energy use. This is a principle. These are 2 principles that must be respected. And as to how and what Russia could do and what we together could do, technically, logistically, this is something that we will continue to discuss with our friends. Well, once again about Iran, at the SCO during bilateral meetings, did you discuss the issue of providing practical aid to Iran to help them with rebuilding their sites attacked by Israel or the United States? Now, Iran did not approach us with things like that and never asked us to do that. Minister Lavrov, after the meeting in Beijing, it was said that China and Russia would like to bring the SCO to a new level of relations. What kind of new level is that? It's a level that constantly goes up, always going up. Minister Lavrov, so before Trump, we've heard statements by Lindsey Graham, American senator, saying that Brazil India and China are helping Putin. And you said that Moscow is not worried about its partners, but is there any potential within the SCO, within BRICS, to jointly act against this kind of threat coming from Washington? Well, since we've heard specific threats from Washington coming against BRICS, saying that BRICS undermines the interests of the United States, well, let me say this. Earlier, President Trump had a different opinion on that. He directly said that actions made by the Biden administration using the dollar as a weapon has undermined the authority and the respect for the dollar as a currency, irreversible damage. And I'm sure he understands how true that assessment was, and how BRICS and Latin American communities and other organizations have been trying to find ways to settle trade in other currencies to be insured against this actions coming from Washington. This is a process that's happening. Everyone understands that, including Trump, and this process cannot be stopped. It's not something that we wanted. We didn't want to run from the dollar, or other countries never wanted to do that. It was the Americans that tried to use the dollar to punish those who they deemed to be acting wrongly, not in accordance with their rules-based world order. But to be perfectly serious about our threats, it's not our profession to be worried. So we're not worried about anything. Our job is to work under the guidance of international law and respect those principles, and there's no other way our country could behave. So once again, we have all the reasons to believe that countries that are members of BRICS are sovereign, independent countries, and they value and treasure such status. So we have two final questions. Nikolai Ivanov, Izvestia. Minister Lavrov, American media are saying that the United States are now making their allies, Japan and Australia, to make up their minds how they're going to help Taiwan if it comes to harm from China. And there are also exercises taking place in Australia. So what's the reason for this new circle of escalation in the region? Well, it's not new. It's something that happened. It started years ago, but when the United States came up with Indo-Pacific strategies, so the Indo-Pacific strategies, they symbolize the desire of NATO states to move their infrastructure to the Far East, to Southeast Asia, to Northeast Asia, to create alliances there, nuclear strengthened alliances like AUKUS with Australia and the UK, and the US, Australia and Japan, the trio that keep carrying out exercises with a nuclear component. Also the Indian Ocean 4, Japan, Australia, South Korea, the United States, and the United States at NATO, it keeps pushing to the east. For example, the Philippines have been given medium-range missiles, something that was prohibited before by an agreement that once existed between Russia and the United States. So it's the first time that this kind of weapon is going to be in the region. It's also placed in Germany, in Europe. So it all signifies a forceful movement by NATO to the east. They wanted to gobble up Ukraine. Unfortunately, they couldn't. Fortunately, they couldn't. In addition to that, while using Ukraine as a spearhead of their strikes against Russia, in addition to that, meanwhile, they're moving to the east, and so their desire to maintain NATO control over the security situation in the entirety of Eurasia, instead of having constructive alternatives, something that we stand for, or China stands for, and our other allies and like-minded nations also agree about, that we want an open and free Eurasian architecture of security that will take into account the interests of all the continental countries of Eurasia. Now, specifically about Taiwan, there's a lot of speculation and provocations happening with respect to that matter. Just recently, for example, the rationale that I've just given you, one of the journalists spoke to President Macron saying basically the same thing, and he said NATO is not going to intervene into Asia's affairs if China makes sure that it doesn't interfere in Europe's affairs. So, if Russia is allowed, says Macron, to take control of the parts of Ukraine, what's going to happen to Taiwan? The United States keep saying that they believe in the one China idea, but at the same time they want to support status quo, which means that Taiwan and China exist at the same time. Also, at the same time, they keep sending weapons to Taiwan. I'm sorry. Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Kyslytsya, has stated that the Istanbul format of negotiations has essentially exhausted itself. Is this a form of bargaining, or that they're trying to bring about a meeting between President Putin and Zelensky, or is the Istanbul format on pause now? Well, Kyslytsya right now is Deputy Foreign Minister of Ukraine, but he was once an ambassador to the United Nations. This is where he's made his reputation. But he said that he used to say that the Istanbul format is not a serious thing, and his colleagues said the same. And their reasoning was that the only thing that's being discussed is humanitarian issues, like exchange of swapping prisoners, or exchanging the deceased. If they still believe it's not serious, then it means that they do not really value their people. For example, Ukraine themselves shot down a Ukrainian plane that was taking back its prisoners of war to Ukraine. Now, as to humanitarian issues, it's about the people, it's about their close ones, their relatives. But in addition to humanitarian issues, our delegation also handed the Ukrainian side a memorandum, a draft memorandum on a ceasefire, and the Ukrainian side provided their own memorandum. Yes, they differ in many ways, but we spoke to the Americans as to how they can continue with that. But in April 2022, we were able to agree on some things, on a peaceful solution, on the principles that were proposed to Ukraine. Back then, it was good for Ukraine, good for Russia. The document was basically agreed upon. back in 2022, they were preparing a legal document already, but back then the British, at the behest of the United States, made so that they prohibited the Ukrainian side from signing that document. And so, no matter how different our positions are, there's always a chance to have a conversation. But since they believe it's not a serious thing that they say about the Istanbul format, if they think it has exhausted itself, it only shows that they are not interested in talking and that they are not interested in humanitarian approach. So they continue to support the ideas expressed by many European leaders that Ukraine must be pumped up with weapons. And we've heard statements from European officials saying that Ukraine must be given long-range missiles, whatever they need to make strikes deep inside Russia. Well, they keep saying this: no negotiations, immediate ceasefire, and only then we have negotiations. But a ceasefire without any conditions. And in fact, Macron himself said months ago that that ceasefire would not mean that no more weapons would be given to Ukraine. So they want us to stop our offensive, to give Ukraine a chance to recuperate, and at the same time they will keep providing weapons, keep sending weapons to Ukraine. So they want to this is the same strategy as the Minsk agreements years ago, when they used all that time to strengthen Ukraine. Now, Merz said just recently that NATO must ensure that Ukraine has the strongest defensive military position after the ceasefire. So just engage in a ceasefire, just start a ceasefire, then we will keep pumping Ukraine with weapons. Our American counterparts, they know exactly what our position is. We've given them our position so many times. We don't believe that the format is exhausted. They believe that the delegation level is not enough. And now we're seeing movement from Ukraine, sending their ambassadors. Now, the third round of negotiations, something that we propose to happen since 22nd of June, it's not even mentioned in any reports provided to Ukrainians by their Western handlers. Now their negotiators is going to the United States. At my meetings on the sidelines of the ASEAN events, I have spoken to American officials providing our positions. I don't know if it has been given to President Trump, if he even heard about it. Now, as to if the Ukrainian side said that they had a date for the start of the third round of negotiations, then perhaps there would be less than 30 days to the end of the conflict. But we are acting in accordance with a plan provided by President Putin. That plan is aimed at ensuring Russia's interests in terms of security and guaranteeing the rights of Russian-speaking people that live in Ukraine's territory. Their rights are being violated in a violation of all international documents that are supposed to protect them. Thank you.